All right. I'm, going back to back today, just in case anybody has any questions. All right. We're going to talk about spirituality today. And I'm not going to get very deep into it. I just want to touch over the basis of it. I talk a lot about the universal laws, and I talk a little bit about spirituality. And I know in one of my last sessions, not too far back, I spoke about how we are all spirits. And I've said this a couple of times. We are all spirits having a human experience. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. And this is just a preface because I'm going to really go into some scientific information that really goes deeper into this whole subject of spirituality. So tonight, I'm just really wanting to touch on what spirits are, or what is spirituality. How do we know it's real? What are spirits? And then how we can use spirituality along with universal law to see things that have happened in the past. We can see what happened. So I'm gonna touch on that today. So basically, once again, this is Diva. This is not a really deep subject that I'm used to going deep into, but this is kind of, like I said, this is about spirituality. This is again, understanding what it is, because there's always this big deal about whether or not did science prove it? Is it proven? And, we are science. You are science. I am science. And we see it all the time. The problem is that we have been made to think that we're crazy when we see these things. And I'll just give you a couple of examples so that you'll understand. As I go through this session this evening, I'll give you a couple of examples so you'll understand you're seeing spirituality yourself. The question is, are you going to, you have cognitive dissonance? Are you going to believe what you're seeing, or are you going to allow someone to tell you that you're crazy? All right. So now, once again, we are talking this evening about spirituality. What is it? Okay, we're gonna go into what is a spirit, just briefly. I'm gonna keep this session short this evening, but yeah, we're gonna go into how we know it's real. First of all, what is a spirit? And then we're gonna talk about a little bit about how we can use spirituality along with universal laws to see things that happened in the past. All right. And also, I'm going to put a link up later on about the universal laws so that anyone who wants to have them can go and pull them down and know them for yourself. All right. So let's get into this. Let's see where we are here. Let's get into spirituality. Now, I'm going to say this because, I like to, when I speak on things, I like to have backing for the things that, hola, mi amigos in Argentina, hola. All right. But yeah, I like to have backing for the things that I speak on because, of course, I don't want to be putting out information that's not correct. That's very important to me, that the information that I put out, rather, tell you all, don't believe anything I say or anybody else say. But one of the things, when I get into this spiritual side, it becomes more difficult to find the backing, for the simple fact that a lot of this information that's coming to me is straight spiritual. And it's like the spirits will ask me or tell me to put things out. And it's very difficult. Hola, JJ. Hello, my sis. It's very difficult for me to put this information out sometimes because I don't have any way to tell you to go study it. All right. So this is one of the reasons why I do encourage people, get closer to your spirit. Get closer to your spirit. And a lot of people, well, how do you do that? Well, it comes with knowing self and trying to find self. And you have to do that by, you do have to study a little bit. And it is true that the spirits will send the information to you, but you have to be willing to hear it. You have to be willing to know it. And sometimes, yeah, you do have to read. Sometimes you do have to do your own research and communicate with other people. So this is how you get the information. But, you know, tonight I just really want to briefly go over spirituality, because I have another session where I'm going to come back and I'm really going to go deep into this with the backing of science that helps us to see what spirituality really is and where it is, where it resides, and how you can know it's real. So science backs this stuff up. Again, all of this stuff is connected. When you're talking about science, you're talking about spirituality, universal laws, you're talking about history, you're talking about any of these other sciences, even law, they're all tied in together. And when we're just focused on only one particular discipline, then we don't see the whole picture. But right now, I'm going to go over a little bit about spirituality. You know, I love talking about this. You know, I hope you all will find some information, some useful information in this, what I'm putting out. And then hopefully you'll be, stay tuned, all right, because I'm going to be coming back with a much deeper version of spirituality, where I'm even including science so that we can see some things. Now, what is spirituality? Now, one of the things that, again, as I've said, you are a spiritual being having a human experience. What does that mean? Okay. These vessels, without the spiritual energy, they don't move. They don't move. And so, again, science does back this, and I'm going to talk about this later. But one of the questions always is, does science back it? How science? But even before we go into that, let's understand you are science. Once again, I am science. We are science. So how can we see this? All right. Now, you know, you've had many times where you have been, whatever you were doing, something happens and you think to yourself, wait a minute, I've seen this before. I've been here before, but you've never been there, but somehow you have seen this situation or this setup. And now they tell you to call it deja vu. It's deja vu. What is that? Okay. When you've had situations where you had a dream, for example, and in that dream, it was very vivid, and you saw in your mind this setup. And then maybe 2 weeks later, you're doing whatever you're doing, and suddenly, oh, wait a minute. I've seen this before. I'm not the only one this has happened to. You're not the only one. But somehow we've seen this before. That's called astral traveling. It was in your dream, and now you see that same vivid dream 1 or 2 weeks later. That's astral traveling. When you have these experiences where you feel that you're outside of your body, or maybe you're looking down on your body, or you see past your eyelids or what have you, that's called remote viewing. All of these are instances of your spirit traveling or moving without the vessel. And again, I say to you, you are a spirit having a human experience. And you've seen it yourself. So all of this talk about the science, prove it, you are science. You've seen it yourself. The question is, do you still have cognitive dissonance? Now, the other thing that I speak on is about how we are, as spirits, we don't die. We always have been, always will be, from infinity to infinity. And these vessels are just a makeup, a creation of our energies that we put out at another time on this timeline of infinity to infinity. It's just a dot. These little 90 years or 100 years or whatever you're going to make of your existence, it's just a dot. And these vessels are created by energies that we put out at another time. We create them, and we contract with our mother to come back into this dimension. And again, I'm going to give you some information that's scientific that backs this information. All right. But I just want to, we've got to do our research. Metaphysics helps to give an understanding of this. Even when you're reading the Bible, it gives an understanding for those who have a more in-depth understanding of those scriptures that you're reading. It talks about this. All right. There are other, what do we call them? Ancient scriptures that talk about this. And then for me, the spirits, they just talk to me. They show me. All right. And so again, as you move closer to your spirit, this information that I'm speaking on is going to resonate with you. But in the meantime, try to find a way to do some research and read up on this phenomenon. Metaphysics is one of the good ways to get started with it. Now, again, we talked about, I'm speaking on what are they? Let's understand this. You've heard the term mineral spirits used. And we need to understand, why is it called mineral spirits? All right. Well, let's talk about what mineral spirits, or what alcohol, because they use that with alcohol. What is alcohol made of? It's made of fermented whatever, fermented fruits, fermented rice, fermented whatever. Okay. And so what is something that's fermented? What grows on things that are fermented? Bacteria. All right. Bacteria have spirits in them. See, let's understand this. We have this idea that because something is microscopic, that it has no intelligence, or it has less intelligence. Let me help you to understand that that is the farthest from the truth. Some of these microscopic beings, they have more chromosomes than you do. They have more chromosomes than you do, and they have an intelligence. They have a purpose, and they are very clear on their purpose when they come into this dimension. So when you put them into you, and again, by contract, all right. So when we're talking about demonic possessions or whatever, that's look, they're there because you allowed them to be there. So especially when we're talking about alcohol, for example, you drink the alcohol and it gets in you and it controls you. How is it that some people, they drink so much they don't even remember? You can't control your hands and your arms and whatever, because see, what a spirit will do, it knows, or let me rephrase, a bacteria that has a spirit in it, it knows that it doesn't have to control your arm or your leg. It's going to get into your brain. All right. And that's all it needs to do, because once it gets attached to one of those brains, all right, once it attaches, it can control you. All right. So when we're talking about these bacteria, we're talking about beings that have the ability to control the way you think. You're driving down the street and you're not thinking about it, but of one of your brain cells, whichever one, it knows which one it needs to get control of. And as soon as you see that hot donut sign come on for Krispy Kreme, oh, you're going to have an accident trying to make a left turn from the right lane to get over there to Krispy Kreme to get those donuts. And this is that bacteria got you like this. It's like, we going to Krispy Kreme. No, I don't want no Krispy. Go to Krispy Kreme. That's it. You are done. You at Krispy Kreme, and you almost had an accident trying to get there, because that's how bacteria do. And so we need to understand that these bacteria, they're not unintelligent beings. They are highly intelligent, and they have the ability to control when you're not aware of what you're allowing into your vessel. All right. Let me go over another thing that we're familiar with. Everyone has heard of the term mitochondria. Mitochondria is that DNA. It has a DNA that is felt by every being. Okay, so here's the deal. If you have a child, they're going to have your mitochondria, And always the mitochondria comes from mother. All right. And so if your child is off and something happens to your child, it gets hurt, it gets harmed, or whatever happens, you feel that as a mother. You're going to feel that energy because it's a mitochondria DNA that you're feeling. And it doesn't matter if your child is in the next room or in the next country or on the moon, your mitochondria DNA is going to alert you that there is something going on with your child. Well, the same way you feel it with your child is the same way your mitochondria affects your ancestors. See, we're going to go into this because once again, we are spiritual beings. So what does that have to do with mitochondria, then, Diva? Understand. Let's understand what mitochondria is. And I'm not going to go deep into this on this session because I want to talk about just briefly, because I'm going to go deep into it when we do the scientific side of this. But mitochondria is a bacteria. I'm going to say it again. Mitochondria is a bacteria with its own DNA. And what's important about understanding that is your ancestor. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. See, these vessels are not what we think they are. We've trapped in these vessels, and that's what's going on with the mitochondria, and we're going to show that from a scientific point of view, from a scientific standpoint, that the mitochondria have been trapped in these vessels just like the spirits, because they are the spirits. And they are the ones that are trying to talk to you and direct you and help you understand. And they bring you knowledge because they always have been and they always will be. And so when you listen, understand this, mitochondria is in every being on this planet. Every plant, every animal, every bug, everything has mitochondria in it. And so this is one of the reasons why, we're all connected. All of us are connected. And so we've got to understand what mitochondria is, and we've got to understand what this vessel is. Because we've been, we've identified now with the vessel. We don't understand who we are as spiritual beings, but we'll get deeper into that. But understand, go and do some research. Perhaps it'll help you in the next session that I do, where I break this down from a scientific standpoint about mitochondria, bacteria, what they are. We have hundreds of thousands of them within us that help us. There are good ones and then there are bad ones. There are good spirits and then there are bad. I don't like to say good and bad, but there are spirits that are here to help, and there are spirits that are not here to help you. And one of the things when we're talking about the demons and all that, they're very much real. They come in the form of bacteria. Demons are very much real. They come in the form of bacteria. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get more into that in the next session. The other thing that I want to speak about real quick is that, I spoke about these animals. We have been made to think that we are put here to rule over the animals and that we're smarter than them and that we're more intelligent. And I'm going to say to you, my research is not showing. As a matter of fact, my research is showing the opposite. Especially, again, we think we're so much higher, but we're the only beings on the planet that are enslaved by our own. You don't see bears enslaving bears. You don't see fish enslaving other fish. But here we are, we're enslaved by our own people. Thing that these beings have. They have a higher sense of self than some of us do. Now, any being that can regrow its arms, limbs, that's a being that has a high sense of self, because the only way you do that is by being able to communicate with your cells within your vessel. Okay, the only way, you have beings that can put their hand on a surface and change their hand, the molecular structure of, I say hand, paw, whatever it is, but they put their body part on a surface and they can change the molecular structure of their body to the color and to the surface of that whatever they're lying on. That is having control of self, having knowledge of self. These beings can see things and hear things that we can't see and hear. They have a higher knowledge of self. All I'm saying is, yeah, we have some abilities and we have some functionalities, but we don't have a high sense of self. And until we get that high sense of self, we need to come off of thinking that we don't have something to learn from these beings. All right, let me say this, because the other thing that I'm gonna get out of here, is being able to use universal laws along with spirituality to see what happened in the past. Now, a lot of people will ask me when I'm able to tell them about things that happened in the past without, I go and do the research to back it up, but I already know before I do the research what happened, because again, I understand spirituality and I understand universal laws. What am I saying? What am I saying? Again, with universal laws, the deal is, the main concept of universal laws is that whatever energy you put out must come back. Whatever energy you put out must come back. So if you're putting out an energy in a previous vessel, because we talked about this infinity to infinity, all right? Infinity to infinity. So you put out an energy in this vessel here, when you're not going to just die in that energy that you put out goes away. What am I saying? If you molested people, for example, before you pass, and I'm going to go to the, let's just look real quick, and then I'm going to close up, and we'll get into this when I do the molecular breakdown of what spirituality is. But let's just look at the Catholic Church, for example, and what's going on. Let's say you get an old priest, and the old priest has molested whomever he thought and felt that he can molest. Well, understand this. Just because that vessel is gone, the spirit is still there. And with universal law, whatever energy you put out, it must come back to you. Well, when that being returns back into this dimension, and he will, he's got to enter in a child's vessel. He doesn't just pop up from nowhere and he's an adult. No. That being has to come back in here in a child's vessel. And again, you got to understand what a spirit is. When you're understanding what spirits are and how they start, or not how they start, but how they get into a vessel, then you're going to understand it always was and it always will be. So that spirit comes back in this new vessel. It has to pay for that energy. So how does it pay for the energy that it puts out? Well, again, and forgive me, because I know some people are upset when I say this, but you have to understand that a child is nothing more than an old spirit coming back in a vessel. That's all of us are. We're spirits. And we have returned in new vessels. So when we understand that and we get that, this being comes back in this new vessel, whatever energy he puts out must come back. And he's going to come in to a mother that's going to allow him to receive the same energies that he put out. That's how the universal laws work. As harsh as they sound, we could talk about that because that goes into another, when we're talking about universal laws, that goes into another discipline. But you can understand, when you understand spirituality, you can understand how the universal laws work to a higher level. All right. Now, if I have any questions, I'll be glad to take that. Let's see if I have questions. Again, Diva Laree, I'm going to get into this much deeper from a scientific standpoint. I hope you all are with me when I do that, because that one's going to be pretty deep. But I want to thank everybody for joining me. Diva Laree, I am out. Peace.